Tell you my own personal choices for time of year, and that is I don't like to go camping after Memorial Day, and I don't like to go camping before Labor Day. And you might say, well, why is that? Because after Memorial Day and before Labor Day, what do we have in that? What's that season called? Summer, and that is the busiest time. And, you know, let me just say, if you have kids, you have grandkids, you want to take them with you, they're out of school, and that's probably going to be the best time that you have to be able to do that. If that's not the case, and you don't mind like crowds of people, then, you know, you just go for it. Now these days, mostly every place that you go camping, you're going to have to, you know, find and make some sort of reservation. Camping seems to be a big business now, and even the places for camping have gone up. So they have beautiful parks around the world. I have to say, even though I have lots of beautiful places back on the east, I haven't really, the places that I saw out west in California just were mind-blowing. I mean, those places up in those mountains, and so those are mind-blowing. Next is, if you're going to go camping, you're going to be out in the outdoors, let's think about location. Realtors like to talk about that, location, location, location. So think about location, and that's going to take a little research. That's going to take probably getting on the internet or getting some other resources if you don't like that way to go. And look at, say, places that are close to you, where you live. Okay, let's say if most of you live in North. I love children, but I mean kitty is places that have too much tourism. I don't care to camp in a place like that because you're going to have a lot of people coming. And I'm not xenophobic or anything, but when I go to nature, I go to get away from the crowds as much as possible. I want to be out in nature. I want to be out in I want to be out in nature and the scenery and have the quiet and peace and all that. Maybe either by a waterfall or a lake. And let me tell you, that stuff is so healing to the soul. Amen. I mean, think about it. God first placed us in a garden with all the beauty. And you, I don't know whether you know this or not, but when you're in the city and maybe some of you live in the country, like right here, this is a peaceful environment. You could just go camping where you all are camping. You don't really have to really go anyplace, but it's nice to have a change of scenery sometimes. So if you live in the city, you may not realize it, but it's like your biorhythms are flowing at a certain rate. You know, you're sort of in go mode. Even though you may, you do your, regular things, stop and rest and do all that throughout the day, night and all that. But when you go away from that and you go out in the wilderness and go camping, it usually happens for me after that first night that I go to sleep and then wake up in nature. You'll find that there's a calm that has come over you. There's a peace that has come over you. And so that's in addition to all the beauty that's around you. And it's the beauty around you that is one of the main reasons that takes place. Now, types of camping. Well, a lot of people these days have these campers. I mean, I don't want to be biased, but I really don't really call that camping. I guess technically it is camper, but they call it campers. I don't really call that camping. You got your little pulling that, but I don't want to discredit that. But I've only done tent camping and backpacking. So let me just kind of divide those two up. Tent camping is where you all have, you have your tent. And you're going to set up your site, and a lot of the equipment that you have is in your car somewhere nearby, or your truck or whatever, your vehicle. And so a lot of your gear is right there. So you may have a backpack, you got your food, you got your cooler, and all that's nearby. You can go back to your car as you need and get more supplies, or you can put it around the area where you are. And so if any of you are not used to camping, I would suggest that type of camping. It's easy. Try it for a night or two. Usually my wife and I, we go camping for a weekend. I just took her camping for the first time 3 years ago, and I was wondering if she would like it, but she tried it and she loves it. So now we try to go camping at least once a year. We would like to go twice a year, but we just went camping back in May. Any of you ever heard of Lake Guntersville? Well, anyways, it's in Alabama, and it's this beautiful lake that we just went camping off of, and I'll pass this around. Like I said, I didn't think we would have a screen, or I would have brought some pictures. Beautiful lake there on Lake Guntersville, and I mean, you just gotta keep touching the screen so I won't go to sleep. But that's just one of the sites where we've gone camping, and I've been to even more picturesque spots than that. So anyway, that's tent camping. You have your tent up, and you have everything nearby. Now, and you can see some beautiful places like that. Now, the type of camping that I prefer even more than that, it demands really that you are in a little bit more better shape, and that you have some very different kind of gear. Because with the tent camping, you can just have your stuff in a tote bag, a few, your necessary things. You just drop it in the tent, and like everything else, you got your cooler and all that with you. But when we're talking about backpacking, it's called backpacking because you're not going to have all that cooler and all that. Everything is going to go on your back. And so because of that, you want it to be light. Because you will park your car, your vehicle, wherever it is, and you may travel 10 miles away. You may hike up, down, around, across lakes. Depending on the site that you choose, the longest backpacking trip I ever went on was 8 days. And that was in Kings Canyon, up in the Sierra Nevadas in California. And so the first day we hiked 10 hours. 10 miles. And we found a place, and then went, and the next day, anyway, at the end of 8 days, we had traveled on foot 65 miles. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering, I've gone camping, yes, but I've never done backpacking.
Yes.
Camping. So what are some basic items would I want to have in my backpack, since I'll have to be carrying this on my back? So I mean, just a general list of items.
Okay, good. I'm glad you asked that. We're gonna get into that in just a second. But let me say this before we look into backpacking. One of the things I mentioned is that it demands that you're in a little bit better shape. You're in a little bit better shape because it is very strenuous. At the end of day one on that 8-day backpacking trip, I was wondering if I could continue. Now I have to confess a little bit of testimony. That's before the Lord snatched me out of my foolishness. And I was partaking of things, beverages that we really should not call beverages, and I was plucking plants and putting fire to them and putting them to my mouth and things like that. And I thought inhalation would be good for me, I thought I took seed-bearing herbs too literally. So thank the Lord I don't do those things anymore. But nevertheless, even if you don't, and pray God you don't, it still demands a little bit of preparation. But I'll certainly get to your question. And if any of you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. That'll make it a little bit more interactive. Mark?
Do you have a maximum amount of poundage you should have in your backpack as you walk in?
Well, I would say yes. I would say that you could probably carry quite a bit more than the young lady behind you. But even with that said, you still want to keep things light. You know what I mean? You don't want to try to, I would say anywhere from 50 to 60 pounds at most.
That's a lot.
Most. But the thing is, when you go light, this stuff can be a little pricey. You want to have a light sleeping bag. Well, we'll get into that right now. We're looking at camping and we're looking at backpacking. You can go on the internet and you can get a checklist. Search. You can Google for checklists for camping, and this one is for backpacking. Anyone ever heard of REI? All right, you heard of? Okay.
Nice prices.
Yes, very nice prices. Yes, that's right. Hey, Sister Gail, good to see you. Now, you don't have to shop, as you know, at REI. I don't, because as Brother Elgin mentioned, nice prices. So we can have to shop around. We can look at Amazon, different places, to get nicer, better prices. So let's go with some of the backpacking stuff, checklist, some of the items. Now this is an old, I had this from California. This is an old backpack, a backpacking pack, which I don't use much anymore because I haven't gone backpacking. Yes, Dr. Lee.
Just a suggestion
Yes.
for people who haven't been backpacking.
Okay.
Yes, REI is expensive.
Yes.
But when you're out in the middle of nowhere, you want to make sure your equipment works.
Yes. Yes.
And some of those places, other places you can buy equipment from may not be as good as quality.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the only caveat I would say.
Yes, and I think that's a good point. And so when I'm talking about looking at those other places, I'm not necessarily talking about getting a cheap name brand. In other words, there are still places, but that's a good point, perhaps that you can get quality stuff, but a better price. That's what I'm talking about. As opposed, like say, you might go in Macy's and pay $50 for a shirt, but you see the same shirt in Ross for $25 or $30. So similar to that, yes.
Though one other thought too, though, is that REI does offer classes in your local area.
Oh, good.
And they'll take you out and teach you how to use a compass and stuff like that. So that's a consideration.
That's a very good.
Using REI.
I'm glad you brought that
Use it
up.
to your advantage.
Yes.
Army surplus is also good.
Oh wow, look at this. Army surplus, REI. So this, you hear what they're saying. This is a good idea. In moving toward that is when we look around and try to find resources that will actually give us classes, take us out, give us tours, because that's a way to get the foot wet, get your feet wet, and to get some good training by people who do this a lot. So I would highly recommend those. Yes. All right, very good.
One quick thought.
Yes.
REI, the field training they do,
Yes.
there's a member's price and then there's a non-member's price. So even though you're not a member of REI, you can still get the training.
Okay.
It just costs you probably anywhere from $20 to $35 more.
Wow. Oh.
Member.
Wow. So depending on how much you want to do this, it might be worth it to get a membership then, right?
Right.
Yeah. I talked about being in shape a little bit. I want to say this. I think it's, if you don't have a regular, if you're not really faithful right now to adhering to faith, to health principles, I would say it's time to, preparation to really get into that. Whether it's no more than just walking consistently every day. We want to be in a little bit better shape. We have good health principles, eating well, sleeping well, getting physical activity every day. I've been a weekend hero, and it wasn't good. So I would say that's a good consideration. Yes, a good starting place is to look at some of these health principles and start embracing them. Start just walking. If you know, try walking 10 minutes a day and increase that, because when we go out camping, when we go out backpacking, and we look at these different trails and some of these mountains, I mean, they're hills. Some people were hiking one day with this lady. She was somewhat obese, and we're all three walking together, and the two of us, we were walking along just fine, and before we knew it, this lady, she was, and we were just stopping with her and allowing her to catch her breath, and so that's a good consideration. So let's think about that.
Yeah, Yeah, so you had mentioned
Yes.
how much you enjoy, camping and backpacking.
Yes.
Do you do that
Thank
with
you.
the mindset that you just enjoy it, or do you have something like you may think, are you thinking, well, I may need to notice in the future, or preparing for something that I may have to use these skills
Yeah.
for the future? Is that the mindset?
Well, that a little bit of that may be in there about this is something I may have to be prepared for the future. I think that's a good consideration. A lot of what I do it for is to get away, to enjoy God's scenery, to have a closer connection with Him. Because while there is a preparation that we want to have as the end days, as the sands of time click out, and the end times come closer and closer to us, and more troublous times become more troubling, the preparation that we are going to need the most is the spiritual preparation. That is what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do, because when the time comes, we may have all the equipment, and the Bible says, there's going to be a time that you cannot go back and get your coat or your cloak. And if I can't go back and get my coat or my cloak or wherever it is, then I'm certainly not going to be able to go back and get my nice REI backpack and all this and be set and ready to go. It's going to be time to go. And so with that, we need to have that preparation spiritually. Now, having some basic skills and some understanding about some things out in the wild, yes, that can be helpful. But we're told that our bread and our water are going to be sure. And almost everything is going to be on is GPS now. I have a this is obsolete now, but I have a compass here, and I used to like the maps and compass, right? This is almost kind of obsolete these days, because everybody has these GPS ones. So that means a lot of the terrain is, in order for that to happen, it has to be on satellite. So in other words, we're going to need the angels of God to usher us, just as the angels of God ushered Lot and his slow to get out self into the mountains. We're going to need that too, but we're going to have to be willing hard. God says, don't go back for the backpack or whatever, our coat, just go. And we're going to need that, because everything is lit up on the skies, and they'll provide those clefts of the rocks and those other places for us to go. So we can do this to enjoy, and yes, have some skills that we can learn, that we can utilize along the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You started off by pointing out that a lot of us live fast-paced lives.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And, from the spiritual perspective and the health perspective, I definitely see also just unplugging from technology.
Absolutely.
Reconnecting
Yes.
with my husband, my daughter.
Yes.
I see that as such a benefit nowadays too, because we're always, if you're in the fast-paced life, you're on the phone doing everything, or on the computer.
Yeah.
It draws your attention from the times that we live in sometimes, or what we need to be doing.
Yes, that's a good point. Because even when you go camping, they have some of these, I'm not talking about backpacking, I'm just talking about camping now. They do have the sites where you can have electrical plug-ins. They do have the sites. The sites mostly I go to now, they have a shower somewhere down there. They have the bathroom and the shower. That's not too bad. That's nice,
Yes.
So for the sake of, like I said, I just broke my wife in with camping. Me, I don't care. I can go out in the bush somewhere, and there's equipment that you need for that. So it is a nice time to unplug, and I would challenge you, when you go out, this right here, just unless you have someone that's at home sick, you have something like that, then just leave that in the car.
Yeah.
Turn it off for a while. You can turn it back on every now and then if you need to, but let's unplug for some time and have a more connection with God. So, all right, any more questions at the moment? All right, so let's look at some of the equipment that we need. Like I said, you can go on internet and get this. A backpack similar to this, as I said, is very old, but actually, when I first got this, I didn't have enough of the understanding when I brought this back, because this is actually, you can get the backpacks according to the frame size. I didn't realize that when I got this backpack. See, this is a large frame size, so this would be good for Mark. But I need more of a medium frame. And I've used this many times, and it's worked okay. But you want to have the right size frame, because if you have a frame size, not necessarily the pack size, but the frame size. If you have the wrong frame size, then what happens is when you're hiking is it sags a little bit and it hits you on your butt. And well, it's not like that hurts, but what it does is it wears you out. And so the higher that you have it, and I've noticed that on the trail, I was worn out after just a little bit, and when I cinched my straps and lifted the whole load up, then it was like renewed energy. The load was sagging too low. So little things like that are going to be important. So even with a pack, you want to make sure you get the right frame size. And like I said, with backpacking, you're going to carry everything in there, so it's going to be light. Things like everything, even the clothing, the stove that you're going to have. You're not going to be able to take, plastic water bottles, or jugs and all this of water. So you're going to have your bottles that you're going to have for drinking water, but you're going to need a water filter, because somewhere out where you're going, you get to a lake or stream or somewhere, you're going to have to replenish to get more water. So I like backpacking because it takes you out, and it challenges you, yes, to do things like find water and to make sure that it is purified. Mm-hmm. Now, you've probably heard those commercials. You've seen those commercials, I guess, Crystal guys or whoever else, and it talks about the water being purified as it flows over the rock, and you probably, oh, look at that, look at all those rocks, and you can go and say, oh, this is purified because it's flowing over all these millions of rocks, and I can drink that. Oh, it's cold and it tastes so good, and it just tastes delicious. I wouldn't trust that in these days, because you never know what's upstream. There could be a farm upstream with lots of cows that have lots of droppings, and that runoff will run down. Now, some of that are purified, but there's something also called Giardia. That's a bacterial-borne thing, and it will just make you feel miserable out there in the middle of nowhere, where you don't want to feel that miserable even at home, let alone somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And so you want to purify your water. They even have tablets that you can put in your water. Even some people will purify it and then still heat it. So water, that's some of your main things. Let me back up. When you're out in the wilderness, one of the main things you want to think about is first your shelter. Because you want to make, depending on the type of year, but you want to make sure you got your shelter. You want to make sure you have water. You want to make sure you have some food. Shelter, water, those are going to be the most important things. We can go for a few days without food. Water, we're going to need some water within 2 or 3 days. All right, so shelter, water, and then food. More likely you're going to be taking food. Now, as far as the food for backpacking, you're going to be taking dehydrated food. It's not going to be any... how much time do I have left?
Keep going.
Mark's saying something, I'm sorry, Norman said something different than you.
Yeah. Well, 10 to 15, you're next, so she's giving you her time.
Yeah, you taking my time, go ahead.
You start at 10:15?
10 o'clock, but that's okay.
Oh, mercy.
No.
15 minutes, 10, 15.
Oh, God, okay. Give me a 20-minute countdown.
Okay.
Well, are you telling me the truth, Brother Norman?
Yeah.
I didn't feel a full commitment on that. Because it'll be 40 minutes later and I'm still going. It's like, what happened to the 20 minutes?
I got you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, where was I? Anyway, yes, so...
Food, dehydrated.
Food, yes. So certain things like what we would take on camping, where we can put everything in the cooler. You can make something at home, a nice dish, put it in the cooler, and then pull it out as you need it. Camping, like I said, weight matters. So you just can't take, you're not going to take you're not going to take canned food. All those heavy items is going to be dehydrated food. Like for instance, like soy curls, those are good. You can take, you can take dried beans. The thing is, dried beans take a long time to cook. And that's going to use up a lot of your resources. What resources? It's going to take a lot of your fuel to cook it, and it's going to take a lot of your water also. So you want to get those things, those foods that are relatively quick to cook, and that won't take a lot of your resources.
Are
Yes,
the
sir.
animals attracted to dry food like they would be food that's prepared?
Some may be, some of these, squirrels or whatever.
Bears.
They may. Oh, speaking of that, when you go out, if you got any type of, ladies, if you have any types of smell goods, you might just want to leave those at home. Any type of scents, strawberries, lip balms, any of those types of things, because I've heard of bears have really good sense of smell. I've heard of people, they just left like a strawberry or something, lip balm in their car, and when they got back from where they were, they found the windows bashed in. The bear will bash your windows in looking for whatever that food is you got in there, and they're winner of a chapstick, So keep those things in mind. Speaking of bears, there are certain things called bear containers. You can see those on the internet. They're about like this. They're hard plastic, and they have a disc-type lock that you can take with a coin and twist it off. So they're made like that so that a bear can't get into it, or other animals. So you unlock those, you take that off, and you stuff your dried food down in that. You turn it back and you lock it. And so that when you're out backpacking, wherever you are, first off, it's like almost airtight. So it's hard for them to smell it, and it's hard for critters to get into. And but some people that don't have that, they string their stuff up in a tree and all that. But I don't see too many people doing that these days. You don't want to have stuff smelling that's up in the tree, and a bear, a creature is trying to reach that. It would be better to put it in a lockbox. And yes.
What do you suggest that you carry with you for protection against bears or any other type of animal?
That's a good question. You ever been to Malibu Creek State Park?
I don't remember.
You ever been there, Norman?
Malibu?
Malibu Creek State.
Malibu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful park, Malibu Creek State Park, and me and Rico, we used to go there camping quite a bit. Well, just a couple days ago, well, I don't know, I might tell the story, it'd be scaring everybody now.
No, tell it.
Tell it. We want to hear it.
All right. Yeah, a little kid was just attacked a few days ago by a mountain lion. And the father got on him, and he was fighting the mountain lion. He finally let him go, but then they had to airlift the kid away. But yes, protection for critters like that. First, I guess the first line of protection is watch where you're walking. You know what I mean?
Attract them to you.
That's right. Don't attract them to you. That's one of the things that people feed the animals, and it draws them closer into. But anyway, you could be way out there. Be careful of where you're walking. Next, they have things like bear spray.
Or the mace? Is it mace?
Well, it's a much more intense version of mace. Mace, it comes in a little thing like this, and pepper spray or whatever. But the bear spray sprays about 25 to 30 feet. And it sprays in this really strong blast, this white foam, so because you don't want them to get to you.
Yeah.
So
They can get to you in a second.
oh yeah, especially when you're talking about like a mountain lion. So you want to make sure that you have something like that. I've never had it. Some people who are walking with guns these days, I don't know. If you don't want to go with that option, I would say carry the bear spray. And I would say have a knife. If you don't have a gun, have a knife. Like for instance, that father, he got the bear off, the mountain lion off of him, but something like that is helpful. And you just be aware of where you are, your surroundings. Don't just turn a corner up on